Hello everyone, it's the storyteller here. I've prepared something slow, eerie, and sleep-friendly for you tonight. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Are you drifting off already, or still wide awake? Over my dead body, I sit in the corner of the embalming room, watching as the mustached man drains the blood from my corpse. The corpse lies on a metal table, covered in a white tarp, and there is a faint choker of purple bruising and checkered abrasions around my neck. The blood in the tubes is purple-colored, with streaks of black. My irises are cloudy white films. My pupils are fading black, lifeless dots. As the mortician hooks me up to the embalming machine with its pump and wires, and the cold fluid enters the veins of my body, I feel nothing. I kind of shiver anyway, out of habit. This is skeevy as hell. Funny thing, I spent my whole life being afraid of death. Looks like I ripped that Band-Aid off. So, what am I doing here, in this musty, dimly lit room? What the hell happened? Obviously, there's some kind of life after death. Mystery solved. But sitting here now, watching my dead body, I've got questions. Lots of questions. Next in line, after those lovely aforementioned quagmires, is why in the hell is this dude singing to my corpse? Like, can you get any creepier? The mortician is singing, knocking on heaven's door as he embalms me. Am I in hell? Wow. Pitchy much. Not only that, but his voice is hoarse and raspy, like he is breathing through a lifetime of Marlboro Reds. I can actually see the emphysema in his lungs, seeing disease. I guess that's one of those lovely abilities one acquires after traveling through the valley of the shadow, and that's me, Amelia. And this is what my life has amounted to. A pale, bloated slab of festering lunch meat. Pathetic. I'm vaguely angry. I don't feel outraged and cheated or anything like that. Not looking to get back into that saggy meat sack. I'm ready to move on. It's more of a boiling bloodlust, an impulse to do harm, to set things right. Unfinished business. I want restitution. But for what? And against whom? There's no way I took the coward's way out. So how did I die? I try to remember, but the last thing I can recall is drinking IPAs and taking Jam-O shots with Eddie at McGillen's old ale house on Drury Street, discussing the scoop I'd been working on. I walk into the casket showroom, which is directly across from the embalming room, and flip on the lights. Turns out, this is another one of my special abilities. The room has a gaudy chandelier, various shades of white on the walls, and trim, and cheap green inch-thin carpeting. By the wall is a dingy, moth-eaten couch and stacked plastic chairs. Things are set up for the wake that evening. There are several stands full of freshly delivered flowers, with notes attached, giving their condolences. A poster board with flattering photographs, many of which feature me and my sister, Sarah. A table with a guest book, and some assorted personal items. A dictaphone, a few articles I had framed, showcasing my work, a trophy from high school, blah, 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 blah. I imagine the setting of my death, which I'm guessing was pegged as a suicide by the total lack of mention in the obituary or anywhere else. An inky black shadow appears in front of me, which I somehow recognize as a portal, and it is filled with static, like on an old-time 1980s black and white television set, whose antennas are not set up right. I place my right hand through. It is like jumping into ice-cold water. I am pulled in, and everything goes black. Seconds later, I find myself in a different time and place, in the basement/laundry room of my walk-up Kensington apartment on J Street. Now this is my kind of party. No, not really, Pervo. I'm being facetious. This is a Jomo situation. Besides, this entire room screams set up. Way too fleeky. The crime scene looks like the set of a bizarre porno. Chains, sex toys, a whip, an empty tequila bottle, and a bejeweled cone-shaped polka dot party hat with glitter. These items are spiraled around my naked body, which is splayed out in an unnatural pose. There is a gratuitous can of whipped cream on an end table, brought to you by the set design team for Leaving Las Vegas. There are diamond-shaped imprints crisscrossing my throat. Kinky. These roughly match the links of a utility chain and master lock dangling from a pipe on the ceiling. There's the homicide detective on his cell phone by the staircase. What is he doing? Taking a coffee break? How about bagging some evidence, dude? I guess that's too much to ask. No suicide note. A flared red mini dress with sequins, fucking sequins, is hanging from an actual hanger on the back of a chair in the corner. What am I? Going to a ballet recital? And that isn't even my size. Who hangs themselves naked, by the way? Asking for a friend. What grown-ass woman wants a bunch of strangers staring at her hoo-ha and critiquing her post-mortem body? And if I'm guessing, someone would have had to have sedated me to get my clothes off without simultaneously losing their groping hands in the process. Good to see forensics is on top of things, seeing as it didn't appear that I had even been given an autopsy, let alone a post-mortem tox screen. Wouldn't want to burden toxicology with ruling out the ruthless murder of a local investigative reporter. Jesus. And here we have Exhibit A through Exhibit Motherfucking Z. Forensics hasn't bothered taking any DNA off of my fingers, which are lacerated near the fingernails and probably have some kind of identifying biological evidence. But why bother with that? Taxpayer dollars and all. I certainly wasn't grasping at the chain if I did this to myself. So, query me this. Why do I have lacerations and biological matter under my fingernails? Because I was having such a good time before accidentally shuffling off the mortal coil. These brown brick buildings are so old, the entire basement is probably an asbestos dead zone I wouldn't be caught dead in. Ha! Guess I fucked that one up. I walk to the corner of the room, where I can feel an inky black void of icy cold drawing me in. Another portal begins to shake into existence, static and all. Seconds later, I am back in McGillen's old ale house on Drury Street. The place is filled with Phillies fans, dressed in jerseys and sports tees and sweatpants, swilling beer from octagonal plastic mugs, and playing beer pong in the corner by the dartboard. The place smells like a fraternity basement. It's Getting Hot in Hera by Nelly is blaring a bit too loudly as most of the bargoers have their eyes fastened to the flat screens. Sitting at a table under the neon lighting near the bar is Alex. He's a friend, and he works for Congressman David Lebovitz. He's all suited up and out of place, with that annoying American flag pin on his lapel. He's our slightly douchier Barney Stinson. I'd say we love him for it, but he's suspect numero uno at the moment. Julia Denham is sitting across from him, a chirpy Asian woman who is a PR agent for various politicos around town. She is one of those annoying people who tries valiantly to tell everyone what they want to hear and gives the most annoying try hard vibes you've ever experienced. I overhear the two of them discussing Alex's promotion to campaign manager. Interesting. He seems a bit young for that position. And I didn't know he was a social climber. Judging by his drinking habits, I wouldn't have guessed he had so much closet ambition. I'm so happy for you, Alex. You've always been my favorite. So dashing and talented. Well done, sir. And well done is better than well said, Julia says. Here, here, Alex said, raising his mug in a token cheers. The important thing is to focus on David's military background, Julia says. Agreed. The public eats that stuff up, Alex says. Lots of pushback from the union lobbyists. We really need to lock in union support, too, Julia says. You know there have been rumors about campaign finance issues, hence Jerry being canned, Alex says. We need to silence those rumors, Julia says. I've been working on it, Alex says. This son of a bitch. Did he do it himself? All of my anger boils over and lumps up in my throat, and I look directly into that bitch's face as I scream out, "You bastard!" at the top of my lungs. You bastard, Julia says. Excuse me? Alex says, Holy shit. I've got ventriloquism abilities. I can speak through the living. Okay, focus. Amelia, you can do this. That bastard. I meant, that bastard, I say, through Julia. Interestingly, she doesn't seem to realize I'm speaking through her. You mean Amelia? Alex asks. Yes, that pesky Giorno. We need to make sure she doesn't put the congressman under the microscope or attract unnecessary media attention, I say, through Julia. I wouldn't worry about her. I hear she's a freak and has been on a drug bender lately. I'm sure she can be easily discredited. If she ever even gets around to writing that hit piece, Alex says. Are you fucking serious? I say, through Julia. What? Alex says. I mean, wouldn't want to see her have an unfortunate accident, I say, through Julia. No, wouldn't want that, Alex says with a chuckle. This son of a bitch. At least I know who I'm haunting now. And I am going to haunt this bastard into extinction. You're in for a dead reckoning, Palo. You think you are getting off scot-free on this one? Over my dead body. I distinctly remember, after about a half-dozen Jum-O shots, spilling the beans to Eddie about the scoop I had on the congressman. And Alex had been there, drinking with us that night. I'd laid it all out, given him the goods on a silver platter. How I had a source that Congressman Lebovitz had been funneling campaign funds provided by developer Gerald Bundler, a big-time party faithful, over to several local city councilmen to buy their votes on a zoning and buildings approval. Bundler needed the votes to secure zoning approvals and tax abatements for a gaudy luxury residential tower, unoriginally called the Summit, that does Zippo for Kensington, but which would make Bundler a pretty penny. The two of them slam their mugs together and cheer their damnable conspiracies, and I see an inky black static portal forming over by the dartboard. I walk through two college-age kids playing beer pong. I walk the length of the table. I swat the ball away as I go, and it goes bouncing under a table in the middle of the bar. I knock over a few solo cups, too, for shits and giggles. I step through the portal. Sarah and Eddie are drinking Dunkin' Donuts coffee at the shop by my apartment, seated at cringy tables in the dingy, beat-up walk-in area, which has taken a back seat to the drive-thru, as people have been growing increasingly antisocial. Sarah is my 2-year younger sister. And Eddie, well, you know Eddie, my fellow reporter, best friend. And if I'd lived long enough, there was some underlying chemistry that had us set on a course to eventually fuck. But I guess it is up to Sarah to light that torch if she ever has the inclination. My dance card is a bit full now. What with solving my own murder, time and space portals, learning new supernatural abilities, and figuring out how to pass on to the great beyond. And I'm presently sequestered in a different realm where I can't actually directly interact with the living. So that ship has sailed. She was happy, Sarah. Really happy. Eddie says, In my mental monologue, I think, really wanted to jump her bones. But that's the thing. I have a dirty mind. See her taking her life? Sarah interrupts. Yeah. No. I am not buying it. But I can't help feeling guilty. Maybe there was something I missed. Maybe she was in some kind of trouble, and I didn't see the signs, Eddie says. Maybe if I had just sacked up and made a move that night, she never would have been home alone to be drugged and framed for suicide. I'm sorry. I'll stop. My sister was stubborn to a fault. If she was going to fall on her sword, which she never would have done, you can be damned sure she'd take someone down with her. Someone evil. Someone who deserved it. She never wasted a chance to make a statement, Sarah says. Damn right, sissy. Do you know anyone who would want to do her harm? I say, through Sarah. I can't think of anyone, Eddie says. Was there like a story she was working on? Anyone that might have had cause to shut her up? I ask, through Sarah. Well, Congressman Lebovitz. She was doing a hit piece, Eddie says. And anyone know about the piece who might have, maybe, wanted to stop it? I ask, through Sarah. Only Alex, Eddie says, continuing. Holy shit. Alex was there that night, and he just got promoted to campaign manager. Ah, Eddie, you aren't just a pretty face. Good boy. Now off to make a statement. I arrive in hell. And by that, I mean the Kensington neighborhood of North Philly, above Fishtown. They call it the Badlands. Upstanding citizens are locked indoors, afraid to come outside into the drugs and crime that are ubiquitous. It stands to reason why some developer wants to plow all this away and implant a bunch of yuppies to gentrify the area. But it doesn't mean it's any substitute for cleaning up this mess. Move it out of here, it just ends up someplace else. Philly dope is a thing. $5 a bag. And the stuff is vicious. It is cut with damnation and ill intent. And that is part of the marketing. No joke. There is an open-air drug market on Kensington Avenue that rivals the Roman Forum in terms of sheer brutality. Unsanitary conditions, market domination, carnage, and bloodshed. It bears all the hallmarks of utopia, largest open-air selling market on the East Coast. By a long shot, you can straight up buy fentanyl. Over 200 deaths per year. The place should be swarming with spooks, but I'm the only one that I see. Against a landscape of row houses, abandoned factories, and vacant lots, only Camden more closely resembles Afghanistan. Across the street, there's a Chinese takeout with stock green signage, a nickel laundry that is shuttered, a check cashing joint with padlocked roll-up security doors already down at noon, and an Irish pub called Flanagan's, where people are openly selling drugs outside without even swiveling their heads to look for cops. As Alex walks below the Kensington Avenue underpass on his way to a union rally, He passes by a mattress lying on the lawn of an empty lot by the sidewalk, near a bent-over red fire hydrant. He keeps his head down and walks quickly. I inhabit a bum and say, "Got any change, murderer?" Alex flinches, but doesn't break stride. As he keeps walking, I inhabit a homeless woman who is high as hell and collecting used needles to turn into prevention point for clean needles that can be sold for money. Her name is Renee. "You gonna clean up the neighborhood, Alex?" I say. Through her, he turns his head and says, "You know me. I know what you did," I say. Through her, "Jesus Christ," he says, and keeps walking. Eddie is at the rally at the Union Hall in Fishtown. Alex is standing by the congressman. Renee is in the audience. As the congressman gets on stage, Eddie confronts Alex about my death. My powers have increased, and I now possess Renee. As I approach the front of the auditorium in Renee's skin, I take the package of fentanyl out of my pocket. Eddie's face is red. Sweet boy. He has some sweat on his forehead. He is really putting Alex through his paces, laying out the evidence, providing information from the autopsy report, pointing out motive and opportunity. I taught him well. Pains me to think I won't be seeing much of him after this. As Eddie rushes off in a huff, and Alex stands there red-faced and nervous, I approach. "This is for you, you little shit," I say, through Renee, handing Alex a bag full of fentanyl. "Is this?" Alex says, "Yeah, you little pussy. If you want to take the easy way out. Detectives know what you did. Few of us pushers saw you that night, and they are coming for you," I say, through Renee. Alex looks around the room, grabs the fentanyl, and rushes out without waiting for the congressman. Alex is in his penthouse apartment, the Sterling Apartments in Center City. He sits on his microfiber couch, listless, afraid. I am there, in the corner. A hypodermic needle sits on the table, and Alex is taking the coward's way out. I watch him as he puts the tourniquet around his arm. I watch the blood pool in the fluid as he injects the chemicals into the blood. His eyes close, and his head lays back on the plush sofa cushions. I am going to embarrass him, I think, strip him naked, like he did me. But then another portal opens, warm, full of light, and pulls me in. Separation. Kristen's REM cycle crashed again into the guardrail. The one constant, morning to morning, was the heron. It was symbolic of nothing. Simply the last inhuman face she'd seen before the Miata, and Todd simultaneously punched holes in Lake Springfield. Something clattered above Kristen's head, followed by a disembodied curse. That, too, was part of the morning ritual, along with defoliation, granola, stout, deep roast drowned in hazelnut coffee mate, the digital journal register, the customized multivitamin, the Zoloft, the daily trailer for a watery grave. Her bare feet hit the hardwood floor. She'd removed the rugs after the California King became single occupancy, and the feel of sturdy, substantial phenite walnut under her was reassuring, if not comforting, as Todd's canvases and brushes and tools jostled about in the attic. Kristen prepared to meet the remains of the day. "Jenna, get you the perinatal clinic piece?" Kristen didn't look up from her workstation. "Been in your inbox since 9. You got anything for the cover yet?" Oliver knew damned well Jenna had never missed a deadline, but the option of working remotely had been his editor's idea, and the closet incel had resented Jen stretching a COVID furlough into extended maternity leave into a lifestyle choice necessary for Kristen to retain Springfield Alive's top feature writer. Oliver hungered for Jen's failure. Kristen wasn't about to let that happen. She owed her. "Reason I ask," Kristen murmured calmly, "is if you haven't committed anything to Illustrator yet, I'd like to give Bet a shot at it." Oliver stiffened, but she could virtually feel the vibrations across her desk. She finally glanced up, expressionless. "Bet's been here 6 months. You really think she—" "They," his boss interrupted bluntly. "Yes, I believe they're ready. But you make a point, in your own desensitized way. Bet's experienced childbirth. You rocked this month's cover on college basketball culture. I think Bet can bring something profound to this topic. Don't you think?" Tables tilted, if not turned. Oliver smiled very tightly. "About time they proved their mettle." "I agree," Kristen said, continuing the charade as she shot Jen's draft to the chief graphic designer. "And, by the way, I know it may seem unfair sometimes that Jen and Eli work from home, but there's nothing keeping you from availing yourself of the same option. We can supply you anything you need, including a state-of-the-art multi-terabyte Dell and a subscription to the Adobe Creative Cloud, yours to use professionally, and on that book of yours. Let me think about it." Oliver may waver. From what Kristen cared to glean, most of his off-duty hours seemed embroiled in ESPN, or his literary opus, Gary the Ghostly Goat. Ad revenues were back up post-pandemic, and a franchise in the currently lucrative children's traumatization genre, subsidized by Springfield Alive, was an investment in Kristen's precarious sanity. But Oliver needed to remain close to the seat of power if he hoped someday to claim it. R.L. Stein could relax for the time being. When Kristen turned back, he'd vanished. Kristen peered out onto I-55 South. The mid-morning traffic had slowed, and the nearby Crown Plaza stood in crisp contrast to a cloudless spring sky. Rotunda Publications had been virtually surrounded by cornfields when she'd interned at the Monthly. But the city was grazing noisily at what remained of the Aggie Fringe. The glass-encased fourth-floor dead-center office offered a broad view encompassing the distant State House dome and a suggestion of the lake to the south. Kristen had a few minutes before the superfluous weekly meeting with the publisher, and she scanned the passing parade. The figure was on the berm about 50 feet ahead of the 94 exit ramp. No floundered car in sight, no backpack or duffel, no obligatory cardboard sign indicative of the overconfident highway panhandler, and too far off the ramp for begging anyway. Kristen planted her forehead against the double-paned glass, then brought the blinds down in a clatter that turned a dozen heads in the newsroom. Kristen was headed deep into a pleasant blur of Prosecco and Netflix when the text alert brought her back to reality, or her version of it, the last 8 months. She'd quit jumping for the phone on the coffee table after about the first 50 or so times, but the view out her window this morning suggested she might want to respond to this one. Rue lonely? The messages were always succinct, neutral, and yet seemingly potentially rich in tone and nuance. 2 possible interpretations, the one more discomfiting than the other, but not by much. Something screeched on the wood 2 floors up, and Kristen retrieved the lunetta and the remote. She had no idea whether birds possessed the capacity for terror. The static black eyes that greeted her a nanosecond before Miata and Heron collided in a momentary explosion of flesh and blood and feathers may merely have reflected the failure of the fight or flight mechanism, or renewed faith in the homicidal ingenuity of the human species. Todd already had breached the passenger side windshield, and she, the subconscious she, wondered. Had the Heron adjusted its flight pattern 2 feet, would they have shared a moment of communion, bouncing about the Miata, pondering the idiocy of hope and trust in forged steel and onboard sensors, in broad wings and open skies? She missed Todd piercing the molecular membrane. She always did. The Heron consistently was the third wheel in this looping drama, and as the show replayed each dawn, Todd had become a supporting player. The Heron slammed into the tempered glass with an odd, muted, wooden impact, and Kristen's head popped from the pillow as the thumping continued above. "Sean wants you to call ASAP," Renee scolded mildly. "Everything all right?" Truck overturned on 55. We were stacked up for about a half hour. Renee began to clarify her inquiry, but her penetrating black eyes darted to the venti caramel macchiato in Kristen's fist. Kristen had decided a half hour of twisted metal and pebbled glass sitting on the 55 bridge merited a bonus dose of caffeine and sugar. See if Oliver got Bet everything they need for the June cover. As Kristen settled in, she noted Dr. Badgley had called back and weighed priorities. She placed her iPhone beside the cooling macchiato and punched the 3-digit extension for payroll. "Yeah, sorry," Sean piped with positively no regret. "You know we're trying to get everybody with the program on e-deposit, but I still haven't gotten what I need from—" "Look, I've got a meeting in about 5 minutes," Kristen said through her teeth. Can we pick this up this afternoon? Let me see what I got on the old calendar. Kristen gently cradled the handset, took a therapeutic sip, steeled herself, and recovered the smartphone. Ms. Blackwood. Dr. Badgley answered almost immediately, cool and genial. I understand you might want to talk. We hit the water almost simultaneously. We'd gotten separated, and then a bird hit the windshield. Big one, because the driver's airbag went off. Kind of a double-edged sword when you're about to turn into a submersible. Neither one of us knew what had happened to the other. We can get back to that, the therapist suggested. What you're describing had to have been horrifyingly traumatic in the moment. But I sense you've since gone through considerable re-examination and second-guessing, and maybe even moments of self-recrimination. What are you feeling right now? As Kristen crossed the clinic parking lot, the text alert sounded. She strode on as she thumbed the green icon, I see you. This time, the heron didn't appear until the crucial underwater finale. Some state cop told her after that Lake Springfield at some points was nearly 30 feet surface to sandy bottom. And as she came to with a flailing start, a broken white carcass floated past the ineffectual windshield, shedding feathers that receded toward the point of impact. In the murk, there was something angelic in the image, as sun and bridge shrank from view. Kristen awoke entirely on her own power, tangling sheets and flinging pillows and slipping onto the naked wood floor. She grappled for the mattress and climbed trembling to her feet. The sounds began as she reached for the knob. A seemingly urgent rustling. Wood on wood. Steps on ancient planks. Kristen twisted the knob, fairly fell into the hallway. The home was once a farmhouse, and a master bath had not even merited a thought. But now, she heard the presence in the attic begin to descend, and Kristen stumbled and pinballed off the walls, closing the gap between bedroom and toilet. As she slammed the door with her shoulder blades, the footfalls dopplered off toward the stairwell. Renee pursed her lips at Kristen's tardy entrance, but the look on the editor's face preempted any bon mot or chiding she might have at the ready. This time, the invasive concern that might have set Kristen off opened her up. I don't know that's a rule or anything, the AA drawled as Kristen finished the abridged and edited version, nudging the steaming world's best porfritter mug toward her. Though I don't think I ever died in a dream, so don't go by me. Hold up. Let's see what the Google says. Here we go. Dying can signify transformation or the end of something. Watching someone die in your dream can feel frighteningly realistic, but it's usually figurative. You might dream about someone dying if you're making big life changes, like leaving a job or ending a long-term relationship, for instance. Dreaming about dying can also motivate you to make a change that you've been putting off. For example, Maybe you've been thinking about going back to school or repairing a broken relationship. That shit. I think they nailed it, girl. Ever since, you've been walking around here like a zombie, and you haven't said word one about the thing, or especially about Todd. Don't want you going off on me or anything, but maybe that was your literal wake-up call. You've been putting off getting on, you ask me, which you didn't. So hey, the big man needs you upstairs. Kristen nodded numbly. I'm a little confused, he began, after she'd settled onto his faux leather couch. You weren't here the other day, so I asked Oliver to forward me the prenatal piece. Perinatal? Kristen instinctively corrected her publisher. I know how you feel about such things, but I was curious if this clinic might be good for some future ad revenues. But then I thought something seemed odd as I got into the piece. He turned to his monitor. As a team of top Springfield area OB-GYNs prepare to unveil a state-of-the-art conception-to-cradle, high-touch, low-intervention perinatal clinic and birthing center, the mood in the capital might be characterized as, well, expectant. That sound familiar? Yes, as I was the first one to read it, and one of only 2 people to have a copy, until you, of course. He ignored the indictment and plucked an open magazine from his desk. A Springfield Hospital's proposed cutting-edge maternity suites have local women and women's health specialists, to say the least, expectant. Remember that? Refresh your memory. March 2008. Kristen was silent for a moment. Oh my God. Seriously? How many pregnancy metaphors do you think there are? Just what are you trying to suggest? That Jenna plagiarized one of my obscure old features, even if she would have lifted my lead, which she would not. Wouldn't you think I'd notice? You apparently didn't. You didn't seem to remember writing it yourself. Now, the publisher was silent. What are you saying? He leaned back, creaking his overpriced throne for effect. This isn't the only similarity I've seen between your stories. So for my own peace of mind, I had personnel give me your girl's number. It had been disconnected, and when I investigated, turned out she's supposedly left town altogether. He adopted a pained, delicate expression. Now I know we don't pay top dollar. You think I'm double dipping? Kristen yelled, leaping from the cushions. Jen works from home, and she gets her copy to me on time and accurate. So I don't really give a shit where that home is. Maybe she should have let me know if she moved. But I understand she was in a difficult relationship, and she may not have wanted to air her laundry with me. Sit the fuck down, he rasped. Kristen stood her ground, panting in rage, and he sighed disgustedly. Sean tells me her last 2 checks haven't even cleared, and she's made no attempt to change over to electronic deposit like everybody else. I've been on her, But what am I supposed to do? And you say her checks haven't even cleared? That's certainly a brilliant scheme for me to cook up, isn't it? A publisher struck speechless is an editor/writer's wet dream. Kristen smiled malevolently and whipped out her iPhone. Here, I'm texting Jen right now and asking her to give you a call. And I'll get you her original email with the story Oliver obviously neglected to include. If you think I've created a phony IP address so I can scam the company for money I have no way of accessing, then be my fucking guest. Now, just calm. But Kristen already was on the other side of the castle door. Okay, here's the thing. We were fighting when the car went off the bridge. I keep forgetting my phone automatically syncs with the Miata's Bluetooth. So I get this call, and I know who it is from the caller ID. So I pick up, not realizing it's about to go on speaker. I pretend it's a client, and then she comes on with a greeting. Well, suffice it to say, it left nothing to the imagination. And like I said, we had a knockdown/drag-out, verbally for God's sake, and we go into the water. After you're thrown from the car, Dr. Singh prompted. I still find it a miracle you survived. We were almost to the northern bank. I hit the water and bobbed up almost immediately, while Kristen landed, in a marshy area. Some dudes had been out fishing, and they got right to me. And since I'd busted the windshield when we smashed through the rail, and the sea was only half submerged, she was able to get out pretty easy. But yeah, miraculously, just a few scratches and some major trauma. Quite an experience to go through together. It can destroy or rebuild a relationship. We got some couples counseling. I promised to cut it off with Jen. That was her name. And we seemed to be back on our old rhythm. Shit. Kristen didn't even want to know Jen's name. Then Jen started calling again. I was honest with Kristen about it and told Jen to fuck off. She finally did, but things started getting worse instead of better. And Kristen was getting weirder, more withdrawn. I finally moved into my attic studio, but I can't seem to get more than a few hours every night. We can look at a prescription for that, the counselor said. And this Jennifer, I had to change chiropractors, and she just, well, I guess you could say she's totally ghosted me. I had to get to a meeting with the printers, but I have to man up and tell you I'm just horribly, terribly sorry for what I suggested. Your Ms. Blackwood left me a voicemail. Nice girl, young woman. And, well, I guess with your mentoring, it makes sense some of your style might have rubbed off. I'll leave your business to you, including however you want to deal with that rat prick, Oliver. Again, just horribly sorry. We'll talk tomorrow. So that was her boss, the detective said, tapping the stylus on Kristen's screen. We're trying to get in touch with him now. Wonder if she was suicidal? The partner murmured, leaning over the sill carefully, then yanking bank with a grimace. I mean, if she called in the tip on Blackwood, the detective shrugged as they moved outside under the tech's glare. 2 dead women. One looks like she's been in that pond 3-4 months. The other makes like a bird out her 4th floor window after making the anonymous call. And get a load of this text string. Thread, gimme, JB. You can't, seriously. Never do that to you. K. Quit calling. JB. PLS. This is nuts. PLS. Come over. Talk this out. K. LV. Him alone. And then it cuts out for a few weeks. They must have talked it out. Or maybe did more than talking. You owe a me. You owe Emma. Credit. K. Where are you? Jumel. Credit. 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 Rue lonely tonight. Rue lonely. Rue lonely. I see you. 'Cause that ain't some creepy stalker shit. Just go on. K. Kanowski knows. It's over. I have to tell. I come over, talk this out. Jesus, you may want his number. Look at the dates. Todd took the Lake Springfield Bridge and the 94 exit with excess care. After the humiliation of confessing his sins, the string of missed calls from the Sangamon sheriffs, and the maddeningly ambiguous news that Kristen was both a person of interest and the victim of some mishap at the office, wouldn't quite coalesce. The ringtone nearly caused him to go off the frontage road. He stabbed at the wheel. The voice from the dashboard was young, female, distant, solicitous, and yet something else. Are you lonely? The spooky boogie. Halloween is a holiday that everyone knows well because it's the only time humans and spirits can coexist. Every year on October 31st, the dead rise from their graves and walk among us. The demons crawl out from the shadows because the holy light holds no sway, and even the monsters come out to play. At first, there was bloodshed on both sides, but it didn't take long for humans to adapt to the annual phenomenon by dressing up in silly costumes to blend in with the evil entities. And oddly enough, it worked. When bloodlust is in a demon's eyes, they fail to see the obvious. Over the years, the tradition morphed into a children's fairy tale. And these days, no one bats an eye if a spectral spook passes by. Adults took on a responsible attitude and allowed their little ones to go out and enjoy the night. Soon after, a festive event called trick-or-treating came roaring into every neighborhood around the world. Every girl and boy would get candy if they simply knocked on someone's door and said, "Trick or treat." The evil creatures paid no attention to the humans and their silly ways. They couldn't tell friend from foe when they wore the costumes, or why one of their own would knock on a stranger's door and not tear them apart. It was a farce that became institutionalized in its absurdity. To each their own. As the world grew older, so did the Halloween fairy tale. The traditional holiday of trick-or-treating morphed into a health-conscious day when adults decided that too much sugar was bad for their kids. It became a hot topic for years, but the day of righteousness came when many children became obese. In the end, the simple solution was fair and just. The little ones could still go out on Halloween night, but instead of getting candy, they would get vegetables instead. It wasn't a popular decision, but it became law and was written in stone. The evil spirits didn't care one way or the other because they floated on with their once-a-year Halloween romp, stomp, and boogie. They still couldn't tell humans from demons, but occasionally a slip-up would occur. If someone removed their costume or mask in a spirit's presence, they were torn limb from limb without a second thought. This was a rare occurrence, but an important reminder to parents and children everywhere to always wear their outfits, no matter what. In the wee hours on Lame Street, Timmy Lawson sat before his parents while his mom, Amanda, adjusted his vampire cape. She saw his legs thumping and asked, "Are you nervous about tonight?" Timmy widened his and replied, "No, Mom. My Dracula costume is the best on the block, and I'm ready to go." He parted his mouth slightly to show his fake vampire teeth and snarled, "Arr!" Amanda looked at her watch and bit her bottom lip. Her blonde hair hid her face, but Timmy could sense her apprehension. "I'll be fine, Mom. I know you will," Amanda said. "I'm your mother, and I'm allowed to worry." Timmy folded his arms and frowned. "Mom!" "Fine," Amanda blurted. "You better get going before it gets too late." Doves exploded in Timmy's heart, and he jumped out of his chair. "Yay!" His father, John, who was always overprotective, lowered his evening paper and warned, "Before you go, I want you to be on your best behavior. And remember, no candy or sweets." Amanda parted her golden locks and echoed, "That's right, Timmy. Only vegetables." Timmy lowered his head and slouched. "No one gives out candy anymore. It's against the law." John reached up to his clean-shaven face and removed his black glasses. "That's true, son. But in this world, there are still a lot of people out there who don't follow that law. Just remember, humans are just as bad as those monsters, and perhaps a bit worse." "Okay, Dad." Timmy didn't fully understand, but his dad was a wise man, and he'd be a fool not to listen. "Your father's right," Amanda said. "We just want you to be safe." She knelt and placed a gentle kiss on Timmy's forehead. "Now go have some fun." A bright sparkle filled Timmy's eyes, and an eruption of freedom sprang from his lungs. He grabbed his empty pumpkin bucket and raced through the front door without saying goodbye. The cool night air brushed over his skin like a masterful painter, lightly kissing the canvas with a boisterous color. Lame Street was bustling with children dressed in their favorite costumes. Clowns, unicorns, beasts, and all. What an awesome night. Lame Street was a small suburban community where every house looked the same, with trimmed bushes, mowed lawns, and perfectly placed trash cans that stood next to the residential mailboxes by the sidewalk. A place where everyone drove a Prius and worked 9-to-5 jobs. Everything was routine, and that's the way they liked it. As Timmy took in the scene, he noticed that his friends were waiting for him at the end of the driveway. Alice was dressed as a ghost. Her white bed sheet, with the eyes cut out, showed a sliver of red hair, which was a dead giveaway. The werewolf was Fred. There was no mistaking that, because he had an uneven stride and often lingered behind the others to hide his anxiety. Then there was Carrie, dressed in a silky black dress with a matching pointy hat, long fake nose, and a huge brown wart stuck to her right cheek. She was a witch. "What took you so long?" Carrie asked. "We've been waiting here forever." "Sorry," Timmy said, walking towards them. "My parents, I'm gonna stop you right there, pal," Alice fired. "We all know your parents are a bag of dicks, so let's go before the night ends. The other kids are already going home." Carrie gave Timmy a wry smile as their eyes met, and he took the lead down the sidewalk. "Okay then," Timmy said, with rosy cheeks. "Let's have some fun and get as many vegetables as we can." I don't like vegetables," Fred stuttered, bringing up the rear. The first house they visited was Mr. Sullivan's, their 4th grade math teacher. Timmy knocked 3 times on his oak door, and Mr. Sullivan laughed when it swung open. "Ah, what do we have here? A witch, vampire, ghost, and a werewolf. Trick or treat, Mr. Sullivan," Carrie yelled, holding out her black plastic cauldron. Sullivan smiled and said, "Well, don't you all look so cute?" He reached around the corner and revealed a huge basket of apples. "Here you go, children. I'm afraid I'm out of veggies this evening, so these juicy apples will have to do." Timmy extended a shaky hand and swallowed deep. "My parents said only vegetables. Fruits and veggies are a heaven's delight," Sullivan groaned. "I don't see the harm as long as it's not candy." He pushed the basket further toward the kids. Alice grabbed one and quickly took a bite. The sweet juices dripped down her chin, and she smiled. "See, they're not laced with poison, so grab one and let's go." Well, you wouldn't know right away, because the poison takes a few minutes to kill you anyway," Fred said, peering through his wolf mask. They all shared a laugh, grabbed an apple, and headed for the next house. "Thanks, Mr. Sullivan. See you back in school." "Okay, children," he said, watching them leave. "Be safe, and don't forget that quiz on Monday." The second house belonged to Jane Thatcher, leader of the neighborhood gossip group. When she answered the door, the kids saw a huge bucket filled with baby carrots. Hello, kids. You all look nice. Alice held out her ghost bucket and watched Jane throw one baby carrot in. Plop. Alice narrowed her eyes and asked, "What happened to the big carrots we got last year?" Jane drew her lips in and took a deep breath. The kids leaned backward and flared their nostrils because her breath smelled like an ashtray. That's because she smoked a pack a day. Well, times are tough, and you can't blame an old lady for trying to save a little. That's okay, Timmy said, holding out his pumpkin bucket. It's better than nothing. Fred held out his wolf bucket and stepped back when he saw Jane place 3 baby carrots inside. He blinked rapidly behind his mask before noticing her ashen breath upon his brow. There you go, sweetie. I think your costume looks the best. And everyone knows I like my men with a lot of hair. Ha, ha, ho. When he saw her yellow-stained teeth up close, Fred ran away. The others quickly followed, but they couldn't hide their laughter. Don't forget to come back now, you hear? Jane yelled. That was gross, Fred moaned. Ha, 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 laughed Alice. I think she likes you. Timmy couldn't uncurl his smiling lips. No, I think she loves you. She wants to pet your fur, Alice scoffed. All right, guys, Carrie urged, taking off her hat. That's enough. Fred didn't deserve that, and we have no right to make fun. Fred removed his fury gloves and shook the sweat out. He shuffled his feet, cleared his throat, and coughed. Ew. I can still taste her rotten breath. Timmy removed his fake fangs and said, Carrie's right. I'm sorry for laughing at you, but it was a little funny. Yeah, Alice said, lifting her bed sheet to suck in the night air. We were just pulling your leg. We're sorry. Fred swayed from side to side and said, It's fine. I guess it was a little funny. You know what we need? Alice muttered. We need some candy. That would be awesome. We can't have candy, Timmy said, looking at the pavement. Besides, no one around here gives it out anyway. Carrie nodded and gave Alice a pat on the shoulder. You're right. Getting vegetables every year sucks. And it would be nice to have some sweets. Yeah, Fred agreed. Suddenly, a deep, shallow whisper blew by the children, like a small flower floating in the air on a warm summer day. Did someone say candy? Stepping out from the nearby bushes was a small, slender man. His face was a carved pumpkin, and he wore a black top hat with a matching suit with gold trim, boots, and white pants. He held an antique lantern to light his way. The children were speechless. They had never seen a costume like his. Who are you? Timmy asked, breaking the silence. His eyes were fixated on the mysterious figure. Me? I'm Mr. Spooky, silly, he said, bowing. He wobbled over and peered into their plastic buckets. What's this? An apple? Carrots? Where are the sweet treats? Alice placed her hands on her hips, and her sheet ruffled in the wind. We're not allowed to have them. Where have you been hiding? Under a rock or something? No, Mr. Spooky said. He held up his lantern and uttered, I've been locked away in darkness for the longest time, but I found this light, and it has guided me here. Are you a demon? Fred asked, taking a step back. I told you already. My name is Mr. Spooky, and there is no other. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of lollipops. I have all the sweet treats you could ask for. Alice widened her eyes, and the sheet covering her face became moist at the mouth. Wow, Timmy shook his head when he heard his parents' words echo. No candy, only vegetables. The thought sent a river of snakes sliding down his spine. We're not allowed to have any candy, Mr. Spooky. What? Mr. Spooky shrieked. No candy? That's absurd. Don't you know what day this is? Carrie stepped forward and brushed Mr. Spooky's hand away. She didn't want to hear any more of his nonsense. Look, Timmy's right. We can't have candy, no matter how much we want it. It's the law. If we break it, we'll be grounded forever. How rude, Mr. Spooky said. No child should ever be grounded. My candy will free you and make you fly like the birds in the sky. Look, man, we appreciate your offer, but we need to go now, Fred said. The children turned their backs to Mr. Spooky and left him alone with an upside-down smile. They didn't mean to hurt his feelings, but in their defense, they were trying to do the right thing. Mr. Spooky thought and thought as the children walked away. No child should ever go without sweet treats. I must change their minds. Wait! He called out. The kids stopped and turned. I have a spooktacular idea. We should do the spooky boogie dance. It always cheers me up. And then maybe you will have some delicious treats. Before the children could say anything, Mr. Spooky stuck out his butt and twirled around like a dancing clown. Timmy, Alice, Fred, and Carrie had a strong urge to run away. But they stood firmly and watched Mr. Spooky because he was just too darn cute. Before they knew it, he broke out into a song. Everybody twirl your body. Do the spooky boogie. Clap, clap, clap. Throw your hands up now. And clap, clap, clap. Stick that booty out. And clap, clap, clap. Do the spooky boogie. Shuffle here and shuffle there. Do the spooky boogie. The spooky boogie. Mr. Spooky's song and dance intoxified the air like a poison mist, and the children soon found themselves twirling and singing along. Their minds were like a lost ship sailing into uncharted waters. The discovery of a newfound rebellion was at hand. Within minutes, candy rained down, much to Mr. Spooky's delight. Oh, how wonderful! Sweet treats from the heavens above. Dig in now and enjoy the splendor. Timmy clenched his stomach and stiffened his jaw. No? Our parents said no, But I say yes. What good is Halloween if we can't enjoy a sweet snack? Mr. Spooky spun around and threw more candy at the children. Alice was the first child to give in to the wicked bliss. She picked up a chocolate bar and took a big bite. "Oh, this is wonderful!" Fred grabbed a piece of Laffy Taffy and bit into the sticky goodness. As it stretched an arm's length, he smiled and said, "This is good." Carrie and Timmy held out the longest, but after seeing their friends give in, they had to sample the goods. They grabbed a peanut butter bar and crunched down. No words came, but Mr. Spooky could tell they loved it by their upward smiles. "That's it, my lovelies, eat. Eat until you've had your fill of sugary sweets." Mr. Spooky twirled and swirled like a ballerina and watched the children devour the candy like a pack of wild dogs. They were in it deep now and munched away every ounce of the candy. They ate so much that they fell to the pavement. They were plump, juicy, and ripe. "Now that you've all had your fill, I suppose I shall have mine," Mr. Spooky growled, walking around their fallen bodies. "You all look so delicious." Timmy rolled over and mumbled, "No, you can't do this." Mr. Spooky cackled at Timmy's protest. He raised his lantern and smashed it down on his head. The impact did nothing more than shut his mouth. With another twirl, a thick plume of purple smoke filled the air, and Mr. Spooky transformed into a hideous demon. His sweet pumpkin face gave birth to devious evil that was hidden all along. He ripped his suit off to reveal a pair of old brown overalls that covered a dusty white shirt. His voice had also changed. It was deeper and more demonic. "Yummy, yummy. You children are now full of sugar, just the way I like my sweet treats." Mr. Spooky reached into his overalls and pulled out 2 sharp kitchen knives that twinkled in the moonlight. Now, stay still while I cut you up to pieces. I can't eat you whole after all, ha 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 ha." Alice still had a piece of chocolate in her mouth, and as Mr. Spooky walked towards her, knives dangling by his side, she spat out the sugary treat. He carelessly stepped into the sticky goo and fell with a thunderous thud. His blades slid in front of Timmy and Carrie, and they grabbed them with lightning speed. Fred exploded to his feet and tackled Mr. Spooky so he couldn't escape. You're not going anywhere." Even he was surprised at his newfound courage. "That's right," Alice yelled, standing. "The one thing about sugar is that it messes with your mind and makes you want more." "Yeah," Timmy said, holding his head. "And we are still hungry." "What?" Mr. Spooky shouted. "You can't do this to me." Mr. Spooky writhed back and forth, trying to break free from Fred's grasp, but it was useless. Timmy and Carrie seized the moment, plunged their blades into Mr. Spooky's head, and cut away huge chunks of pumpkin slices. He screamed like a dying cat. Alice and Fred stuck their mouths inside his skull and drank deeply with their sticky lips. They spat out the seeds and laughed. Timmy and Carrie continued carving away until their sugar rush melted away and ate what was left. The last thing Mr. Spooky heard was someone chomping down on his skull. Later that night, the children agreed to return to Timmy's house to watch some scary movies. They promised each other that they would never talk about what had happened. When they walked through the door, Timmy's parents asked, "Did you all eat your vegetables?" In one collective voice, they said, "Yes, we did." Almost angels. "I dare you." Meryl couldn't resist a dare. She never could. She opened the car door and ran out into the cemetery. It was a night in a million. Not fog, but low clouds hovered around the gravestones. So satisfyingly spooky. There were no stars, but the overcast sky above was bright with moonlight. Meryl could see her way just fine and hid behind a tall stone that read, Margaret Lesko, 1840 to 1913. A woman who died over 100 years ago, and her stone yet survived. "Here I come," said Lucas. Meryl held her breath to keep from laughing and put her hand over her mouth. What she'd meant to do was jump out when Lucas ran past, throw her arms around his muscular shoulders, and wrestle him to the ground. Then they'd kiss. And then she heard his footsteps running across the grass. He called her name while headed in the wrong direction. She was going to wail, "Lucas!" in a horror story voice. But several male voices interrupted from somewhere, and she held it in. "Who are you?" "No! No!" A gunshot, moonlight, shined through the kitchen window onto her mother's table. A vase of dead flowers with a little card on a stick lost its color in the pale light. A pile of used tissues surrounded a box of Kleenex used to prop up her senior picture. "Mom?" she called out. No answer. "Mom?" She opened her mother's bedroom door. Both her parents were asleep in bed. She kissed her mother's cheek, still wet from tears. Mom stirred and smiled without waking. Meryl walked through the halls of the high school, looking for Lucas. Her friends were just up ahead. When the bell rang, everyone disappeared into the classrooms. Meryl drifted into first-hour social studies and sat at her desk. Sue Ann shivered as she walked past and put her jacket back on. The words "imports and exports" were written on the board. Lucas's seat was empty. Lucas's parents and siblings stood outside the hospital room. Meryl tried to see inside room 314A, but a team of medical personnel surrounded the bed. Machinery breathed and pulsed lights. "Lucas?" she called. No answer. She could have gone inside, but she didn't want to interrupt the doctors. "I love you, Lucas," she whispered. Autumn, and the trees had turned. A mildly wild wind rustled through the colorful leaves, backdropped by a steel gray sky. Merrill strolled through Charlton Park, kicking the leaves on the ground. During the summer months, roses filled the gardens, and on Saturdays, brides, grooms, and their guests filled the park with ceremonies. Now, the roses were supplanted by burning bushes and mums. Some weddings were still performed in the park during this time of year, but not today. It was Thursday and chilly, and no one else was here. Not even a dog walker. She walked to the playground and sat in Lucas's swing, the one he used when they came together. Here, they had slid down the slides and got silly dizzy on the old-fashioned merry-go-round. I dare you to slide head first. Lucas had taken her up on the dare, and she followed after him. Then they slid down the slide together in each other's arms. A police car drove slowly through the park, looking them over because they'd been making so much noise. It was only 8 o'clock, but dark settled early this time of year. The police station was downtown. Merrill walked past the desk clerks and the stairs where they kept the bodies waiting to be identified by their loved ones. She wouldn't think about that. She sat down in the chair in front of Detective Greta O'Neill's desk. The pictures of 4 men sat on top of paper files. Merrill shuddered. "That's them," she said. But there were only 3. Who is this 4th man? When Detective O'Neill left her seat, Merrill read the report. It seemed Lucas had interrupted the execution of the 4th man, who'd been able to run away before Merrill got there. The 4th man was under protection as a witness to this crime and others. He owed a great deal of money to an organization of criminals. There was a jewelry store on the corner, a few blocks away from the police station. Merrill looked through the window at the rings, the same window she and Lucas had looked through together. The diamond with the golden heart was gone. It had been a small diamond, a 1/4 carat maybe, but Lucas had asked which one was her favorite, and she'd told him she loved that one. Someone said Lucas had bought a ring. Had he? Where was it? She looked at her hand, surprised to see it on her finger. She didn't remember Lucas giving it to her. It belongs to her. She should have it. Who said that? Lucas's mother? Merrill always had the feeling Mrs. Kessler didn't like her. Lucas would have wanted her to have it. Yes, Mrs. Kessler's voice. They had slipped it onto her finger at the funeral home and buried her with the ring. She glanced over her clothes and found herself not wearing the clothes she died in, but the dress she'd worn for her senior pictures. The same dress she'd worn to her funeral. So confusing to be dead at first. All her friends were there. Everyone from the high school she knew and didn't know. Every one of her relatives. Poor grandma. She didn't understand. Her parents were so sad. And Lucas's parents. Merrill ran out from her hiding spot behind the stone toward the sound of the gun. Lucas lay as still as the grave markers surrounding him. Blood ran from his head to his face. The man holding the gun was surprised to see her running toward him at full speed, yelling for Lucas. Unafraid, he lowered the weapon and smirked, nearly laughing. What have we here? He hadn't expected her to jump at him the way she did, and it knocked him to the ground. As he fell, she wrested the gun from his hand and shot. After that, one of the other two men put their hands around her neck and choked her life away. As she faded, she saw a bright light open wide above her head, and the gunman rushed toward it. Before he got there, a shadow whisked him away. The light waited for her, but Meryl stayed behind with Lucas. The red and blue lights came too late for her, but not for him. She rode to the hospital in the ambulance. Meryl sat on Lucas's hospital bed with her arms around him. His mother sat in the chair closest to the bed. His father sat beside her, and his two younger brothers sat in the room's wide window seat. No one spoke as the machines whistled and pumped. There's little to no activity in the brain. He may never come out of the coma. He will never breathe on his own. Spend as much time as you like with him. You tell us when. Lucas opened his eyes and smiled when he saw Meryl. The machines set off alarms. A doctor came in and checked Lucas's vitals, then shook his head at the family. He disconnected all the machines and left the room so Lucas's family could say goodbye. Meryl cried, while his family suffered through the realization that all hope was lost. His mother was the last to leave the room. The worst was watching Lucas work out that he was dead. "I'm here," she whispered. A bright light opened wide above them as they held each other. "Shall we go?" Lucas asked of the light. "Do you think they'll let us stay together?" They kissed and decided to stay a little longer. "We can always come back to the hospital and jump up into someone else's light," they reasoned. "We shall see." After Lucas's funeral, he wore a suit instead of a hospital gown. They found they could revisit any place they'd already been, including the movie theater. Every night, they kissed their mothers on their cheeks as they slept. It was years later, in October, on the road beside the cemetery, long past dark. A pair of headlights came into view and headed their way. "I'm going to scream this time," said Meryl. "I dare you." "I will." When the car was close enough, Meryl and Lucas stepped in front of it. Meryl screamed. Tires squealed and screeched, and gravel flew as the car came near to losing control and then stopped. "Did you see that?" the driver screamed. "I saw it," the passenger screamed back. The ghosts of those murdered teenagers that haunt this road every year. I think I even got it on video. If you're all right, then let's go. There's no signal out here, and I can't wait to post this. Down under the Manhattan Bridge. Overpass. Running along the streets of Lower Manhattan, crossing over Center Street. I kept an even tempo. The sky suddenly darkened as heavy clouds covered the blue sky like spilled ink clouding out over parchment paper. I could have turned back and avoided the storm, but I needed to get my miles in. Post the numbers. Do the work. Think of that Starbucks cappuccino and the warmed-up butter croissant that's waiting for you. I had already gone 5 miles by that point, but 6 miles was my daily minimum, and I was hurting. Right calf cramping, stitch in my side, labored breathing. Count your steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tyson is the best. Tyson can't be beat. The training was the only place where the force of my will held sway. The only thing in my control. Ever since the accident, it was even more important to stick to the plan. Keep my health intact. For without that, there was no livelihood, no finding a partner, no future family, no legacy to mark the fact I was here and alive. Without that, I was nothing but an advertising account manager in an agency. The net purpose of my life being to create desire in people's minds and associate their pre-existent needs with a brand that had the answer to their woes. It is all snake oil, really. There is no such thing, no panacea. I learned that in the hospital. I kept asking, isn't there a drug or something to reverse that? Their heads shook. No? Isn't there anything that can help with that? Help the healing process? Their heads shook. Just rest and rehab and my will. Just work and luck. As I crossed the Brooklyn Bridge, I dodged an older Ukrainian woman with a shawl and a steel utility cart filled with groceries. A bunch of kids walking along with their heads down on their phones, smoking stogies and taking drags off vape pens, and dozens of sightseers taking selfies. None of them were turning back. None of them were chastened by the storm. And I wasn't going to abandon my planned training over some weather. I needed to get in my daily 6-mile allotment. I owed it. I couldn't come up short. Everything depended on consistency, inerrancy, and discipline. I remembered laying in the hospital bed after waking up from the induced coma. I remembered rehab for the foot drop in my left foot that wouldn't flex due to the paralysis of the nerves, the damned peroneal nerve that I'd never heard of until it became my nemesis. For a while after the stroke, I couldn't see from my right peripheral and experienced a kind of pause in my thoughts during conversations. Just lost my bearings and couldn't remember what was just said. In tests at the neurologist, I couldn't repeat a simple sentence, which made it hard to carry on a conversation. That is how it goes. One day, everything is normal, and then you get struck by lightning, or in my case, a Prius. Taking my bike out to buy groceries on a Tuesday night, I got sideswiped by a Prius and suffered head trauma that resulted in a stroke. The rain came forth in a downpour. The wind cracked like the lashes of a whip, and the cold exhalation of the river pulled the heat out of the autumn air. I felt the first warning droplets, sprinkles of mist, icy tendrils. Then they came harder, steadier, coating my forehead in a glaze of salty New York City rain, all acid and recycled Hudson River sludge. Truth be told, I alternated between the carrot and the stick. I'd count steps, give myself a little rah-rah stuff, and think of my after-run meal. But I'd be lying if I didn't own up to the fact that most of it was an evil drill sergeant saying, "Who are you kidding, you worthless loser? And your life is nothing. You are nothing. You're a fucking loser. Worthless. A piece of shit. Why do you even exist?" And worse, that is the voice, which has been more persistent since the stroke. And after the stroke, there were also occasional visions and hallucinations, usually malevolent ones, fears brought to life in the form of ghouls or ghosts, scarecrows or hobgoblins, just 80s B-movie stuff mostly. Nothing truly terrifying. A few moments later, the deluge crashed over my shoulders like shower water, running down my back, a furious gush of water, and the wind hit my face, buffeting me with unrelenting blows. And the wind slapped my back, muffling the street sounds and cocooning me in the isolating cone of rumbling storm sounds. It was isolating and unpleasant, the farthest thing possible from 70 degrees and sunny. When I finally came over to the Brooklyn side of the bridge and found some city ground shielded from the wind by buildings, with sufficient overhangs to shield me from the rain, the air was cold and crisp, perfect autumn air, redolent of carpets of crunchy brown leaves crunching underfoot on the sidewalks. But I was already soaked to the bone. I made my way down into Dumbo, sailing along by buildings with Merlot-covered bricks on their faces, watching you as you go, and cobblestone streets that give back sound as you clomp along, as if they are conversing with you and warning of the things hidden in alleyways and liminal spaces amid the cityscape. I headed under the Manhattan Bridge overpass by Adams Street to where people were enjoying the cool weather at wooden picnic tables and congregating to enjoy the autumn evening. They were all dry and had arrived before the storm rolled in. Happy with themselves, no doubt, for their attention to the weather report on their iPhones. Applauded, I could not boast. I joined them and sat at a picnic table, drenched in cold rain. Steam coming off my face, my forehead, and my very breath. The rain was in my sweat-wicking t-shirt, in my Lululemon running sweatpants, and my water-resistant running shoes were squishing out water like a wrung sponge as I walked to the bench and sat down in a heap. A puddle of waterlogged defeat. An old Jamaican man directly across from me had a gray glass eye beneath drapes of dreadlocks. He was playing chess with a young black boy, school age, wearing a ball cap. There was a midget. He was a handsome fellow, square and black-haired with a side part, wearing a collared shirt and khakis, carrying himself with the deportment of a king. He was clean-faced, with a small mustache, giving just a hint of the rebel. I saw a red-haired woman in a green dress walking past. I saw a crow fly through the archway, down toward Pebble Beach. It was a surreal moment, separated out of time. And then, as I sat calmly, looking about, I heard a sound. It was a chirping whistle, a piping, a chattering screech. Chwee-a, pep-a, chwee, chwee. The sound came again, haunting, melodious, distressed. Chwee-a, pep-a, chwee, chwee, oop, chwee. Then on the heels of the sound was a mocking chortle. Oorp, qua, oorp, 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 qua. I looked about. I looked at the red-haired woman in the green dress who had sat down and was talking to a 7-foot-tall monster, a giant, who looked like an adult sitting at the tea table outside on the back lawn of a doll's house. They went on chit-chatting without a hint of disturbance. I looked at the Jamaican man with the dreadlocks and the glass eye. He moved his rook nonchalantly across the left-hand side of the board, capturing a threatening bishop with a satisfied smile. I could not see the little boy's reaction, but he was a gaunt boy, malnourished, with a Yankees ball cap. I looked at the midget, who was reading a book in the light of the golden hour, facing outward on the park bench he chose, oblivious to his surroundings. Did none of them hear it? Chwee-a, pepe, chwee, chwee. Then I looked up and identified the sound. The thing that made it. It was perched, inverted, clinging with claws like meat hooks that dug deeply into the concrete of the archway, holding the sinuous body in defiance of gravity. Its coat was a brilliant golden color that shimmered like fall leaves coated in nail polish and adorned with 1,000 tiny shimmering gemstones. It glistened with a slight pink hue. Its tail was a lion's tail, through and through, a happy, wagging tail that was at least 2 feet in length, with a big pom-pom on its end. It had a spiraling circular mane from neck to shoulder blade that transitioned from white feather to golden fur, capturing all the colors of the palette in between. And its wings. They hewed closely to the torso, the muscular lion's torso, draping the sides, a gold leaf texture, reminiscent of the hammered, thin, unmistakable coating on bar ceilings from a bygone age that features the iconography of the architect's fancy in repeating patterns and frames the rooms in an unnatural glow. And the head. The head was the most haunting. An eagle's head. That regal head. The beak with flaring nostril holes, alternating in the light between bright canary yellow and deep amber. A thing of menace. And the eyes, big and raven-like, but sad. A killer's stare. Eyes that encompass the eddies of shame mixed in with the confident assurance of death itself. The black swirl of destiny that has come to pass. Chui pepe, chui chui. The thing sprinted along the archway to the ground like a circus motorcycle in a cage, seemingly immune to gravitational pull. Its footfalls light and quick. Impossibly light and quick. And it was off toward Pebble Beach. I sprang to my feet and ran after it, running at a high tempo, not knowing why I was giving chase. At first, I could see it ahead of me on Adams Street, heading north toward Water Street, and I picked up the pace. It ran along the sidewalk beneath some scaffolding, and then leaped upside down, running along the underside of the scaffolding like a weightless mirage. I sprinted hard, and lactic acid was pooling in my legs. We bore left on the cobblestones of Water Street, and the creature was back on the ground, pulling away from me, leaping with long, fast strides over the cobblestones. My legs grew heavy and leaden. Just past Jacques Torres Chocolate, it grew so small in the distance that it became like a lonely speck of gold. Finally, the creature reached Pebble Beach and the great glass cube over Jane's carousel, and leaped again over the velvet stanchion ropes at the entrance and perched atop the carousel frame. I finally reached the attraction and ducked inside, leaning against the glass walls of the display to catch my breath. I watched as the creature circled around the top of the carousel. The carousel started up, and strains of old-fashioned music from the band organ floated over the river, mingling with the sound of crowds passing by. Da, dun, dun, da, dun, da, da, da. The 48 hand-carved wooden horses began to rise and fall as they circled Brooklyn Bridge Park. Chui a pep a chui chui. The alien visage of this wrangle creature, with the head of a old eagle, vocalized its haunting call, and then regarded me, head motionless, at full height over its tucked-in and perched haunches, front legs straight, shoulders drawn back. It sat stationed on the far, ornamental exterior work beyond the moving mechanisms of the carousel, which spun beneath him. And it fixed its gaze and continued to regard me in eerie silence. Was this some apparition? A lengthy hallucination caused by my damaged neural veins? Or could this impossible vision be real? You dare to chase after me? it said, not in the voice of an ordinary man, but in a booming voice, like that of a great general. I thought it was a hallucination. I had to see if you were real. I said, "This is no dream, boy. What stands before you has the strength of a lion and the wisdom of an eagle. I am the protector of great treasures. I test men's merits and search their hearts in hopes of finding, in any of you, the nobility and courage required." It said, "Well, I guess I'd best be going back home. I was just finishing up a run. I wasn't looking for treasures or claiming nobility or anything like that," I said, beginning to walk toward the door. "Stop. Don't take another step. Are you telling me there's nothing your heart desires?" the creature asked. "Desires? Too numerous to mention. But right now, I just want my health back. A sliver of confidence, maybe," I said. "Humph. That isn't much. What would you use this health for? What would you do with your courage? Run in circles? Aim for a promotion? Settle down with a girl? Is there nothing more that drives you than a hamster wheel? Some money to throw at creature comforts? And settling down? No sense of adventure?" it asked. "Not for nothing, but making rent in Brooklyn and starting a family in this day and age is an adventure. Let me tell you," I said. "Enough, insolent little man. You see these horses on this carousel?" he asked. "I see them," I said. "Horses are the natural enemies of us griffins," the griffin said. "Why?" I asked. "Because horses are mindless servants that serve the will of the pure and the wicked alike. Lemmings, good-natured creatures, almost aristocratic in their complete humility and subservience, but to no end. Us griffin are creatures of purpose, and you, my friend, are giving horse vibes," the griffin said. "So, what is my purpose then?" I asked. "A better question would be, what is the purpose? But at least you are on the right track," the griffin said. "Okay, so what is that?" I asked. "I must be on my way now, but I will see you again," the griffin said. And it turned, and in a flash, the griffin jumped over my head, landed outside of the display, by Pebble Beach, and with long, fluid strides, like a leopard, dove onto the river and began churning across the water. Legs turning so quickly, it looked like the spinning wheels of a locomotive. The powerful wings opened, and it took flight, flapping those giant golden, shimmering wings as it soared out of sight. I continued my run back home, churning my legs, a fire in my abdomen, heaviness in my legs, a drowsy, delayed hitch in my left leg's footfalls. And as I reached Williamsburg and was almost home, I suddenly collapsed. A light was shining in my eyes as I came to. A red-haired woman in green medical scrubs was flashing a light to test my pupils. "Doctor, pupils constricting normally and dilating with the removal of the light," she said, looking down next to her. Monitor the patient for the next half hour, order up an EKG, and let me know of any unusual speech patterns observed," the man said. The doctor was a midget. He had a commanding presence despite his small stature. As he walked out of the room, the nurse did a few more tests and then turned back to me and said, "Rest up. You'll need your strength." A few minutes later, a giant man with a huge forehead entered. He had to be 7 feet tall. He said, "I am here to put some heparin and warfarin into the IV drip. It'll just take a minute." The man placed the screw-on syringe into an input tube and pushed the drugs into my IV drip. Then he flashed a friendly smile and was off. Finally, a Jamaican man with dreadlocks and one gray glass eye walked into my room and started writing on the whiteboard on the wall in front of me. "Roger," he wrote on the board. "I'm Roge, like Rogie, and I'll be taking care of you these next few days. Just press down on that dar button if you be needin' anything, and I'll be right in to sort you out. Okay?" I nodded at the man as he left, and scanning the room, I saw a little black boy in the bed next to me. He was asleep, and his head was covered with a Yankees baseball cap. He lay there completely still, in a coma, or maybe sleeping, just as gaunt and frail as they come. I had taken my EKG tests, had been wheeled around for some scans, and then brought back to my room. Exhausted, I'd passed out for a bit. After coming to from a short nap, I heard it again. Chui pep chui chui. Looking before me in the room, I saw the griffin. It was seated in the corner by the open window, letting in the cool October air. "What's your why?" the griffin said. "What?" I asked. "You want to get better, right?" the griffin asked. "Of course," I said. "You're going to need something a lot heavier than a Starbucks cappuccino and a croissant to put up with what this life's gonna throw at you. You're gonna need a lot more treasure to make the adventure worthwhile," the griffin said. "I don't know what that is," I said. "There will be time, my boy, to find it," the griffin said. "But are you even real?" I asked. "I am real, if you believe," the griffin said. "But what is a purpose to live for? Give me an example," I asked. "That is up to you," the griffin said. And with that, jumped through the window, calling back, "It's all up to you." And as he took flight, I felt a searing pain in my left shoulder. Chui pep chui chui. Teddy. My name is Teddy. I'm 10 years old, and a demon wants to eat me. I can see it, but nobody else can. I can talk to it, but nobody else can. The demon screams at me at night, but I don't get scared. Even when I see spit drip from its sharp black teeth as it tries to bite my head off, I'm not afraid. I'm 10, after all. I'm not a baby. I can't tell my mom or dad about the demon, and they wouldn't believe me anyway. There are rules that you have to obey when a demon owns your soul. And one is that mom and dad can't ever know. Nobody can help me, it says. The demon promises that one day soon it will eat me until I'm almost dead. Then, with one more big bite, I'll be done for. Those huge, black, shiny teeth are sharp as my dad's razor. I'm sure they could munch through my innards like pink blancmange. We have that at school for dessert sometimes, but I don't like it anymore. The demon knows I cannot be his blancmange until I am 13. I don't know why 13. The rules are the demon's, and not mine. It knows I know about the 13 rule. I'm safe. I'm only 10. Ha! Hello. I'm Teddy, and I'm 11. A demon is dying to kill me by gobbling me up. It will eat my toes, my tummy, and lastly, my head. It owns me. It keeps on telling me, but it can't hurt me yet. Not 13, see? It still tries hard to scare me, though. It gets really mad at me and said that it can't wait to chew my head off. It can't wait to grab my skull in its 3-fingered claws that are sharp enough to gut fish or little kids. I'll bleed through my eyes as it squeezes my brains to a blood orange pulp. Finally, it will bite into my inflated head until it pops, and my blood dribbles down its chin and onto its serrated chest. It taught me the word serrated. I'd heard it before, but I didn't know what it meant. The demon said that it can mince up children straight into its belly to save time by just using this serrated kitty chest grater, like a smoothie maker for monsters. But it will not eat me in a fast, smooth way. I have to suffer slowly, it says, but it doesn't say why. The demon has shown me too how this will look. It's brought a lot of broken 13-year-old girls and boys to my bedroom at night. I said, as I saw innards come out through their bellies like red wet sausages and get swallowed down the demon's gullet. It also taught me gullet. I like that word, but I don't really like seeing the broken kid's eyes after I go to sleep. Hey there, I'm Ted. I've just turned 12. Mom says I'm almost a young man now. A lot can happen in a year. I've grown up a lot. My demon is still coming to me every single damn night. It warns me. It promises me that the agony it will inflict on me will have me begging it for death. I will know a unique suffering before it finishes me off. These aren't my words, BTW. These are demon words. It talks very passionately about me most of the time. The demon talks in lengthy detail about my death, how it will flay me, or maybe strangle me almost to death. But release me, then strangle some more, then go round again, again, and again. Its rheumy, yellow, bloodshot eyes stare wistfully into the dark folds of my lampless bedroom as it describes my death. The demon bites through all my bedroom light bulbs, keeping it dark to enhance the mood. It says, "Mom ran out of light bulbs. What do you keep doing in that room at night, Ted?" she asks. But she wouldn't believe me, and I can't say. The demon wonders, what will I taste like? How warm will my 13-year-old blood be? How quickly will it cool and clot? Do I know my blood type? It doesn't make a difference, but it would like to know. Will my brain be aware of what is happening while I'm being eaten alive? Will the demon chuckle contentedly while it does? Oh yes, it says, it will chuckle. Will my meat be firm and tender? How loudly will my bones snap as it shears through me right down to the marrow bone? I decided I don't like that word, marrow bone. It's ugly and gives me images of the inner parts of me that shouldn't be seen, should never be messed with, and especially should never be eaten. Will I be easy for it to digest? Will I give it a dicky tummy or gas? It must be playing with me. Demons don't get gas, surely. But it says they do. Their internal digestive system is made of brimstone and lava fires that glow through its smoothie maker rotisserie chest. The gases from it exhaust through noseless nostrils and its backside. I don't know a sorry death until I hear and smell a demon fart my half-digested body, it said. It didn't say this to be funny either, and I never laughed. Sometimes the demon gets so lost in its stories of how it will enjoy violating me that I think it forgets I'm even there. But there I am, in my bed, making sure my ever so slightly hairy toes aren't poking out from the bottom of my football pitch quilt. I squirm inside when I imagine the monster chewing on my toes. My poor toes that have been content on the ends of my feet for 12 years, ungnawed. I can't quite believe that one day they will be no better than sausages on cocktail sticks at a children's birthday party. Great Ted. Why did you go and think of that? Birthdays? My next one is, I can't quite comprehend it yet. It's real, but not real. The demon and its funky breath is very, very real. I'm still 12. For now, I'm Theodore. Tomorrow, I turn 13. I don't want to talk about it. No, Mom. I don't want a party. Greetings. I am Malphus, or Dajjal, or Zezbeth. I have been known by many names in many cultures. I have existed for centuries. All should fear me, especially children. Those that don't are the lucky ones. But awareness comes with age. Awareness brings concern. Concern brings fear. Fear brings death. I am death. I am a clock watcher. a time eater. I have no end. Teddy once thought himself eternal, as the young do, blinded by his youth, ignorant and immature. But immaturity eventually blossoms. It wears down like enamel on teeth and ripens like a blood orange, ready to be eaten. I wonder, does Teddy remember the blood orange promise I made him? Not to worry, it has no impact on his outcome. I am Malphus, the demon that ate Teddy. He was aware to the very last bite. I strangled him. I flayed him. I grated him. He begged. He suffered. He cried. I chuckled. His bones snapped loudly. His head popped messily. His marrow bone was stringy. His blood curdled. His toes were hairy. He gave me wind. My stomach feels troubled. He was too gristly, and I am still picking bits of him from between my teeth. I am the monster that finally ate Teddy, and he tasted average. They really are past their best at 13. Dream time. The barren charcoal seas of Mare Crisium span the horizon in all directions. The vast Picard crater is the only natural feature of this desolate landscape. Its high outer ridges cast a long shadow across the crash site as our white, hot star races towards sunset and lunar night approaches. "Harper, put your jumper on," says Mama's voice. "It's getting cold." The earth looms large in the sky, about 20 times more massive than it should be. I take small, slow steps towards it, transfixed. That shouldn't be there. It's too close. Our planet is spinning rapidly. Each day only lasts 3 seconds. With each rotation, this beautiful blue marble becomes ever more obscured by wildfire smoke, noxious gases, and nuclear fallout, until the permacloud forms and engulfs our home world, suffocating my view. I leap up high in desperation and reach with straining fingertips for the earth. Floating 10 feet above the lunar surface, a gravitational tug of war fights over me. The mighty planet wants me to come home, but the proximity of the moon wins this match, pulling me back gently to its dusty surface. Our stricken Orion X command module now lies before me, casting a great silhouette across the faint backdrop of our galaxy. This impressive machine towers over me, yet we are both still dwarfed by the endless nothingness of the lunar surface and the infinite space beyond. I hesitate at the entrance hatch door. A familiar tightness across my chest warns me to back away. Death is close. But a promise is a promise, so I force a quivering hand against the frozen palm port scanner. Nothing happens straight away. But sure enough, the warmth of my touch thaws the device until the emergency lighting illuminates the sensor pad and the outer hatch slides open. Taking a deep breath of nothing, I step in, shiver, and rub my arms as a ghostly chill runs through me. The inner airlock door is wide open to the main chamber. The lunar colony raiders who downed our ship have stripped it of all equipment. It's just a broken shell now, like me. This is usually the point when I awake, sweating and panicking. But this time is different somehow. This time, I'm ready to accept what has happened, to accept what I must do. Willing myself onwards, I creep around the other side of the central seating column. Burnsy's body is still strapped into his flight chair in full EVA suit, just as we were forced to leave him. The helmet visor is smashed, and I recoil at the sight of my dead friend's face. His one good remaining brown eye stares at me without seeing me. His features are perfectly preserved in the vacuum of space, with no oxygen or bacteria to do their worst. "All right, Harper," says Burnsy in his musical Welsh accent. "Took you long enough. Fancy taking this helmet off for me?" Icy tears freeze upon my cheeks. "But I'll need to pull that shard out from your eye first. I'm bled out already. Just go for it." So I grip the metal fragment, once part of the ship's outer hull, with one hand and brace the other against Burnsy's forehead. There's a squelching sound as I ease it out from his eye socket. The gooey remains of his eyeball and some flesh and brain matter come out with it, making me retch. Burnsy doesn't move or make a sound until I have freed the 10-inch bloody dagger from his skull. I fling it away from us, exhale in relief, then twist off his cracked helmet. A pool of congealed blood oozes out with a sickly metallic stench. I throw up over my prison scrubs. "Ah, that's better. Cheers, mate," says Burnsy. "Hey, what's with the outfit?" "Solitary confinement. 1 year for sabotaging the mission." "Well, that's bollocks," he says. "It was your father, again. You weren't to know he was in league with those colonist bastards." I nod grimly, then clean my hands as best I can on my soiled uniform. Then, with great care, I remove both of his gloves and hold his freezing hands in mine. "I'm so sorry, Burnsy. I gave him the launch codes. It's all my fault." He reaches out to touch my cheek. "No, it's not. Your father tricked and betrayed you. Betrayed all of us. Come on now. No use crying. His love and compassion are more than I deserve. Tears are easy to wipe away. Guilt is not." I collapse into his strong, welcome arms. "I've missed you so much. I'll never forgive myself. Harper, this is not on you. Honestly, let it go." His undead hands gently prise me away, then undo his harness buckle. Taking my hands again, the body of Morgan Burns stands up. "Now let me go. It's time. I'm ready." I shake my head. I'm not. He holds out an old-fashioned, wooden-handled spade towards me. We promised each other, remember? It's time. Taking the spade in one hand, I turn to face the exit hatch. Come on then. We step out onto the moon's black surface. My whole body convulses, and teeth start chattering. So I put on the old green woolly jumper and sheepskin boots that Mama keeps by the veranda. Then Burnsy and I head out for a nighttime stroll under the stars. Hand in hand, we walk across the dusty front yard, past the crooked gum tree and battered old tire swing I once loved so much. We continue past the empty, rusty cattle pens and into the outback. The sweet honey aroma of golden wattle trees fills the night air. This is just how I remember it. Before the great firestorm rose everything to ashes. With the darkness of a new moon above, the magnificent celestial arc of the Milky Way rises above the domed silhouettes of the distant Kata Chuta peaks. Is this where you grew up? Asks Burnsy. Partly. This was Grandpa's station and the ancestral homeland of Nana Kira. We rest under the canopy of a pale river red gum tree where Nana used to tell my cousins and me Dreamtime stories. Here, by this creek? Perfect, says Burnsy. We were happy, weren't we? In Australia, his face is healed. Younger, like from our R&D lab days back in Perth. His long, dark, matted hair is back, as are the memories of those raucous times. My cautious smile turns into a big grin. Those were the best days. Remember the nights out we had with Eddie, Kathy, and the gang? They were proper banging, eh? He says. How about them drinking games we played? Like Moose and One Lifeboat. What? All the games that you instigated? Not to mention those rude rugby chants you had us singing through the streets after closing time. We laugh until we cry. Then we just cry, mourning our long-lost friends, our families, and the lives we once had. Taking him by the hand, I broach the unspoken subject between us. Burnsy, I'm sorry I never fully loved you, like you loved me. His longing eyes are too much to bear, so I look down and make marks in the dirt with a stick. I just wish I felt those sorts of feelings. I wish I felt them for you. He leans over and kisses me gently on the cheek. I turn my head so our noses touch, and our eyes meet once more. My hands are on his muscular chest. He's not bodybuilder big, but lean, like a man who's spent years building machines with his hands and with me. He takes me in his arms once more. An alien sensation, an urge comes over me. So I kiss him back on the lips, fuller, deeper. A light breeze rustles the eucalyptus leaves overhead, and their minty, woody scent rains down upon us. Starlight dances upon the unhurried ebbs and flows of the burbling creek. A distant pair of boobook owls call to each other with mournful hoots, as if for the last time. Afterwards, we hold each other, gazing up at the night sky through the gaps in the canopy. We lay like this for a long while, putting off the inevitable, until Burnsy passes me the spade again. I'm ready now, so I get up and start digging. Aren't you going to help? I'm dead, remember? Always an excuse. The ground is dry and hard, so Grandpa Handley helps instead. After a long while, just before the outback dawn breaks, Burnsy's shallow grave is ready. Climb in then, I say. But Burnsy doesn't reply. His lifeless body, short-haired, blood-stained, and missing one eye, is already laid to rest. Scooping up the tear-spotted red earth, I find enough peace to bury my best friend and say goodbye. Just as I promised, the gates of hell. Jaxby staggered through the desert with 2 empty water jugs in his backpack, but the heat weighed him down. The protein bars were long gone, but that was just as well, because he couldn't have swallowed them anyway. He didn't have any saliva. Step by step, he began to accept that he was going to die. Buzzards circled the sky, watching their supper cook. All he had to do was lay down. His legs and feet wouldn't hold him up much longer. Soon, he thought, the landscape that hadn't changed since he began this journey was suddenly different, as something appeared ahead of him that he wasn't expecting to see. That shouldn't be there, he mused, but his painful eyes widened at the lights. They shone brighter than nighttime Reno, though it was still daytime. Mirage came to mind, but he tamped it down and staggered on. Hours earlier, Jack Isby's car had broken down on Highway 50 in the middle of Nevada. The engine light came on first. Then the radio stopped playing Hotel California. When the world whited out amidst blasts of steam from the engine, he pulled over and panicked. He'd never seen so much steam, and with it came a smell, something that smelled like jail. He wasn't going to make his court date on time. That meant jail. When the steam dissipated and he could see again, he got out and opened the hood of his 2013 Subaru. He knew nothing about cars and didn't know what he expected to see or find. But that's what people did. Perhaps he'd find a card that read, "You receive a second chance. Try again." Despite his lack of hope, he returned to the driver's seat and tried to start the car. Not even a click. There wasn't a signal on his phone, but he dialed 911 anyway. Nothing happened. Jaxby, or Jax for short, unfolded his paper map. How far back was that sign that pointed to the name of a town? Here. Since the road on the map dipped downward, then up again, He figured he was on the upside of a U. He thought it would be quicker to backtrack if he cut straight through the desert instead of keeping to the road. If he used his compass and held true, he should have no problem reaching the opposite side of the U. And besides, he had come prepared for an emergency like this. Or rather, Angelina had prepared him before he'd left her in Reno. He shouldn't have gone there to see her last night, not with this court date looming. She told him not to come, but he became suspicious. She was trying to keep him away for reasons other than his well-being. There had been no reason for his lack of faith. He'd found her alone, watching television, and she made him glad he came. He didn't tell her he'd raged out of his mind with jealousy for the entire 6-hour drive and would have bodily injured whoever he'd found her with. He had been able to hide that part of himself from her so far. Or maybe not. Maybe he'd blamed her for sleeping late. He packed the 2 one-gallon water jugs and a box of protein bars into his backpack. He placed a wide-brimmed hat on his head and wore long sleeves to protect his face and arms from the sun. There was a blanket, too, and Jax shoved it in with the other things, then started out on foot, with his sunglasses set firmly on his nose. After 2 hours, he wondered how one body could sweat so much, and his legs and feet already ached. He drank water freely, without bothering to conserve, figuring he was almost there. He had to be when he faced the same landscape another 2 hours later. The second water gallon was more than halfway gone. He sang to keep his mind off his dilemma. Eventually, his thoughts envisioned his lawyer scowling in the air-conditioned courtroom as his client, Jaxby Johnson, never showed. The road rage offense had ended with a death and infuriated him whenever he thought about it. Mance Rayfield had started the altercation and had provoked him not once, but 4 times. 4 times, Mance had tried to run him off the road. On the 5th try, Jax outmaneuvered him, and Mance's big, bad Silverado tumbled down into a ravine. Jaxby's Dodge had followed, but he made it out with only a few scratches. Mance didn't make it out at all. He got what he deserved. As far as Jaxby was concerned, it was his lawyer who bade him to show remorse when he appeared before the judge today. Now hope lay ahead, and Jax used every last bit of his strength to get there, determined to reach the lights. He crawled his way through the last part of the journey and arrived on his knees on the road between 2 brightly lit saloons facing off from opposite sides. The road disappeared into the landscape in one direction and ended here. Despite his pain and suffering, Jax laughed at the ingenuity. One saloon glowed a white, brighter than the sun on the desert sand, and was aptly named the Pearly Gates. The other was lit with orange and blue flames. The Gates of Hell was posted on its entry. the pearly gates door opened, and someone came out. Jax glimpsed a room filled with people and wondered where all the cars were. Perhaps they were bussed in, and later a bus would arrive to take them back. "My name is Peter," said the man from the pearly gates. Two people dressed as angels helped him up and brought him inside. "My name is Jaxby Johnson. Do you have a phone I could use? I need to call my lawyer." "We have no phones here," said Peter. "Everyone asks, though, what happens if there is an emergency?" "We have no emergencies either. Please excuse me while I get my book." Jax was given cold water and a small cake. "Angel food," said the angel that served it. Jax was feeling much better by the time Peter returned with a tome. "Read it," Peter told him. "At the end, you'll have a choice to make." Jax looked at the book, entitled Jaxby Seth Johnson, with his Earth date to the current date listed on the front. What was this? How did they know who he was? He looked for Peter, but Peter was nowhere. He opened the book. The first page brought up his first lie, the first candy bar he had stolen, the first fight he'd gotten into, and went on and on from there. He was served more cake as he read. A pitcher of water was refreshed. While the road rage incident with Mance appeared near the end, it wasn't his last offense. Angelina had tried to wake him that morning, and he'd pushed her away and told her to leave him alone. Then, later, even though she'd filled his car with emergency supplies, including the paper map and compass, he blamed her for running late and called her a foul name just before he left. It made her cry. She didn't deserve it. It was the only thing he felt remorseful about. Peter returned. Jax had 1,000 questions, but didn't get to ask them. "It's only for that remorse you are feeling that I am offering 1 second chance. Heed my warning. You won't get another, so choose carefully. Follow me," he said. Jaxby followed. They stepped outside. A mountain of boulders stood before them. Peter offered a silver hammer to Jaxby. "1 stone for each of your trespasses, and 2 stones for each of Mance Rayfield's misdeeds since you took his life. Once you turn the stones to dust, you may stay here. Think carefully before you decide, for my offer comes but once. If you decide against it, we'll disappear forever, leaving you to the mercy of the gates of hell." Jax was confused. Was this a dream? A mirage? Something didn't feel right. He looked over the pile of boulders, reaching to the sky. Changing them to dust with the small hammer Peter offered would take a lifetime. Who was Peter, anyway? "I don't feel I should have to pay for Mance's wrongdoings." "Very well," answered Peter. He took the hammer from Jax, and the world flashed out. Jax was back on the road, back on his knees. The pearly gates was gone. The gates of hell lay before him. Jax crawled forward. No one came to help him. When he pushed the door open, a crowd cheered. 2 people dressed as demons pulled him to his feet. Mance Rayfield stepped out and punched him in the face. The crowd booed. Jax punched him back. The crowd cheered, back and forth, booing and cheering. Jax was tiring. He needed to rest. "You win," he said to Mance. "Boo!" the crowd answered. Mance hit him again. The crowd cheered. "I said I give up," Jax said. The crowd booed. On and on and on. All at once, a gate appeared in Jax's peripheral vision. He edged toward it, connecting a bloody fist to Mance's bloody nose. Another step, another blow. When he was close enough, he opened the gate and raced out into the desert. A sky of stars welcomed him into the cold night. Without warning, he was back in his Subaru, singing along to Hotel California, smiling in relief, until the engine light came on and the radio stopped. The world whited out amidst blasts of steam, and Jaxby pulled over. He opened the hood, tried to start the motor, packed his 2 jugs of water and his box of protein bars. He left the blanket behind. He wouldn't need it. This time, he stuck to the road and conserved the water. Maybe a car would stop, or a bus. Hours later, lights blazed from up ahead. When his feet gave out, he crawled. A buzzard cried out from the lonely sky. Only the gates of hell remained. The pearly gates was gone. For the first time in Jaxby's existence, he felt remorse. Remorse for everything. The shadow, the night, was silent, draped in an inky darkness that swallowed the world outside the small security room. I sat alone, surrounded by an array of flickering screens that illuminated my face in a ghastly blue glow. The hum of the surveillance equipment was the only sound in the room, its monotony broken only by the occasional creak of the building settling or the distant wail of a siren. I was the lone sentinel, tasked with safeguarding the premises during the bewitching hours of the night shift. Hours had passed since I settled into my chair, my eyes diligently scanning the labyrinthine halls and desolate rooms of the building. Everything appeared as it should, empty, lifeless, and eerily quiet. But as the clock ticked deeper into the night, a sense of unease settled in the pit of my stomach. The air seemed charged with a palpable tension, as if something sinister lurked just beyond the reach of the camera lenses. I leaned forward, adjusting my seat and peering closer at one of the monitors. In the dim light, the corridor appeared to stretch endlessly, the flickering fluorescent lights casting long, ominous shadows on the walls. As my eyes darted across the screen, I saw a movement, a mere blur at the edge of the frame. My breath caught in my throat, and I focused on the camera, my heart pounding. There, in the grainy black and white footage, was a figure. It was tall and gaunt, its features obscured by shadows. The figure moved slowly, almost purposefully, down the hallway, its gait uneven and unsettling. I squinted, trying to make out any distinguishing features, but the face remained hidden. Shrouded in darkness, a shiver crept up my spine as I grabbed the radio at my side. "Central, this is security. I've got a visual on an unidentified person in Corridor C. I need backup." Static crackled before a voice responded, thick with sleep. "Copy that. We're sending someone your way. Stay on the line." I nodded, my eyes never leaving the screen. The figure continued its eerie saunter, disappearing momentarily from one camera's view, only to reappear on another. It seemed to be toying with me, always staying just out of clear sight. A phantom in the night. Minutes dragged on like hours as I awaited the arrival of my colleagues. The figure persisted in its haunting stroll, growing closer to the main entrance with every passing moment. I gripped the edges of the desk, my knuckles turning white, and watched in dread as it reached the lobby. As if sensing my gaze, the figure turned its head toward the camera, and I gasped. Its eyes, 2 points of cold, blue light, glowed in the darkness, fixated on the lens, as if it could see me. I recoiled, my heart pounding so loudly that I could hear it in my ears. "Central, it's looking at the camera," I stammered into the radio. "I need someone here now." The response was a garbled mess of static and fragmented words. Desperation clawed at me as I watched the figure approach the security room. It moved with an unnatural grace, its movements silent and deliberate. My fingers fumbled for the door lock, and I managed to secure it just as the figure reached the hallway outside. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the room, and I pressed myself against the wall, my breath shallow and rapid. I could hear its footsteps now, soft but deliberate, as it approached the door. Each step sent a chill down my spine, and I prayed that the lock would hold. The figure stopped just outside the door, and I held my breath, willing myself to be invisible. Through the frosted glass window, I saw its silhouette, tall and imposing. Its hand reached out, fingers curling around the doorknob. I bit down hard on my lip to stifle a scream. My entire body tensed, ready to bolt at a moment's notice. Seconds stretched into an eternity before the figure withdrew its hand, and I heard its footsteps fading away down the corridor. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. The building seemed to groan and sigh around me, the very walls whispering secrets that I couldn't comprehend. Summoning my courage, I cautiously unlocked the door and peeked into the hallway. It was empty, devoid of any signs of the figure. I hesitated for a moment before venturing out, my flashlight casting shaky beams of light across the walls. The air was thick with a sense of dread, and I could feel unseen eyes watching my every move. I retraced the figure's steps, my footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. Each flickering light and distant sound sent my heart racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed, that the figure was still there, just out of sight, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I finally reached the lobby, my eyes scanning the area for any signs of movement. The room was still, the silence broken only by the distant wail of sirens. I let out a shaky breath, my nerves frayed to the breaking point. Whatever had been in the building with me was gone, but its presence lingered, a haunting memory etched into the very walls. I made my way back to the security room, my steps quickening with each passing moment. As I entered, I glanced at the monitors, half expecting to see the figure staring back at me. But the screens were empty, showing only the empty halls and deserted rooms. I sank into my chair, my hands trembling as I reached for the radio. "Central, this is security. I think it's gone. I don't know what it was, but it's gone now." The response was a crackle of static. And then a voice came through, tinged with concern. "Are you all right? Do you need medical assistance?" I hesitated for a moment before shaking my head, even though I felt far from all right. "No, I'm fine. Just shaken up. I'll be okay." The sun began to rise, casting a faint light through the windows and dispelling the darkness that had settled over the building. My relief was palpable, but the memory of that night would forever haunt my dreams. I had come face to face with something beyond explanation, something that defied logic and reason. As the day shift arrived to relieve me, I gathered my belongings and made my way to the exit. The building, once familiar and comforting, now felt alien and menacing. I stepped out into the daylight, the warmth of the sun, a stark contrast to the cold grip of fear that still clung to me. I glanced back at the building one last time, my eyes drawn to the security room window. For a brief moment, I thought I saw a flicker of movement inside, a shadowy figure standing amidst the monitors. But it was gone in an instant, leaving me to wonder if it had ever been there at all. I walked away, my footsteps quickening with every step. The world around me seemed to blur, the events of the night replaying in my mind like a nightmare. I didn't know what I had encountered, and I wasn't sure I wanted to. Some things, it seemed, were better left in the darkness, where they belonged.